Hey y'all, how are we doing today? Let me fix that camera. It's hard to know what this camera's gonna look like until you go live. Um, all right, Robbie Falk here, Talkin Dogs on YouTube. We are live here from fabulous Choctaw County, Mississippi, and we're gonna talk a little Mississippi State sports tonight, as we always do. We'll talk anything you guys want to talk about, so don't think this is just a baseball show tonight. We're going to talk about whatever you guys throw out there. We're going to start off with baseball, obviously, but we got some spring football if you guys want to talk about that. We got the basketball transfer portal, still trying to figure some things out in regards to that, but baseball is probably going to dominate the show because we're right in the middle of the season and things are still interesting for Mississippi State baseball. Not over yet, and we'll discuss that a little bit too. For those that are just tuning in, I'm Robbie Falk from 247 Sports. I cover Mississippi State for 247, the network there, and we have a great crew over there at our site with Paul Jones, Steve Robertson, Mike Nemeth, David Murray, myself. We have a really good crew, the source for Mississippi State sports out there, and as far as team and recruiting is concerned. So I'm glad that you guys are tuning in to hear a little bit of what I have to say. But I want to hear from you guys too. That's why we have these live chats. That's why I have that box over there for you guys to comment whenever you want to. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your questions, whatever you got, throw them in there, and we'll discuss them tonight. If you aren't subscribed to this channel, please go ahead and do that. I'd really appreciate that, your support there. And like this video, share it, whatever you want to do. But I really appreciate the support if you could do that. So let's get into it. Mississippi State baseball goes on the road to Tuscaloosa this past weekend. And it got a little hairy on Friday. But the Bulldogs were able to win that series against Alabama. Big series win for the Bulldogs. The first series win in nearly 1 year. It was nearly 1 year ago this week. I think we have a couple of weeks to hit that mark, but it was in April last year when Mississippi State went to Ole Miss and won that series. Felt like at the time was a huge series win for Mississippi State, and you felt like you had two teams going in opposite directions. Mississippi State was picking up a little momentum. Ole Miss was losing momentum, and it looked like Ole Miss was probably going to be odd man out in the SEC of missing out on the tournament. Looked like State was trying to fight its way back into possibly hosting, and it just didn't happen. From there, Mississippi State won a ball game at Missouri and then just fell apart the rest of the year, and we saw what happened with Ole Miss. So really just a wild end of the year, and that was the last time that this team won a series. The Bulldogs were able to win that series in Oxford. I think 7 straight series losses until they went to Tuscaloosa this past weekend were able to win that. So it was good for the Bulldogs to get that win in Tuscaloosa, and really we saw some good things. I mean, the Friday game notwithstanding, it was a good weekend for the Bulldogs. Thursday night, they really pound out some big hits late in the ball game. I thought Cade Smith did a good job in his first start since the Arizona State series and didn't walk anybody, only pitched 3 innings, and that's what he was supposed to do. They're trying to work him back into getting into the 5-6 inning range, possibly even 7 innings if he can really have a good outing. So 3 innings, didn't get roughed up. He gave Mississippi State a chance, left with the ball game still relatively intact there. And Colby Holcomb, I thought, seriously competed in that ball game when he came in. He struggled to find the strike zone early. Then he really settled down. I thought he pitched really well in relief. Casey Hunt got you some good innings in the back end. And, of course, the bats really woke up. You had some big home runs late from Ross Highfield, Hunter Hines, Slade Alford, and the bats really were able to get you going in that ball game. You won that first one. Game 2, you struggled. Drangelo Sanja couldn't hit the strike zone consistently, got you in trouble. You have a 5-run inning that really put you out of the ball game at that point. State ended up getting run ruled, I think, for the 3rd time this season in SEC play. And that was kind of the what we've seen from Mississippi State this season is they just couldn't keep guys off the bases. They were giving away free bases. Looked like they were going to do the same thing on Saturday with Landon Gartman, and the defense really struggled early. But I thought Gartman really settled in. I thought middle innings they did a good job pitching there, getting the ball to Nate Dome, getting the lead. And when Nate Dome came in, he really shut it down. I thought great performance from him. The offense woke up late. You had some big defensive plays late. It was a complete ball game after that first inning, I thought, for Mississippi State in all phases. So go on the road, get a big series win there. You're now sitting here at 3-9, I think, in SEC play, which is not a great record. You're not in great position right now, but you got an RPI at 30. You're in a great spot from that standpoint. But you just got to win games, and right now it's all about winning games. I think State really needs 10 more SEC wins to feel like they got a good shot at getting in the postseason. And that's kind of where it is. And 10 wins is not going to be easy. You got Ole Miss coming up this weekend. You got to go play Tennessee. You got to play Arkansas. You got to play LSU. It's not going to be easy, but State's got to find wins as rapidly as possible here. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what's on the way. Of course, Ole Miss coming up this weekend. Ole Miss is really struggling. 2 SEC wins. They're last in the SEC right now. And the loser of this is staring down the barrel of not making Hoover. And a lot of pressure is on the coaching staff at that point. Yeah, I don't think Ole Miss would do anything to Mike Bianco after winning a national championship. But, State's really got to find a way to get some wins here and help out this coach. And this coaching staff's got to help themselves out here down the stretch. They've got to win. All right, so let's get to some questions here tonight. We'll start with Kobe Walker. Who do you think will get drafted for State in baseball? They're always going to have guys that are going to get drafted. I mean, right now, I have to look at some of the guys that are draft eligible. Kellum Clark is definitely a guy that I think is probably going to be drafted and go. Just skimming over some of these guys here. Landon Gartman's got a chance, but, who knows? He doesn't have just seriously overpowering stuff. Aaron Nixon's draft eligible. Hasn't pitched a whole lot, but I'm sure he'll want to go. Amani Larry, Colton Ledbetter, those are guys that can get drafted. Cade Smith. I'm not real sure about the, Kobe Holcomb's draft eligible. I'm not really sure about some of the other guys. If you're 21, by the time the draft hits, you can go get drafted. I'm not real sure who falls under that category just yet. Slade Alford, possibility. So they'll have several guys get drafted, I think. Jesse Brewer, do you think Sanja will remain as the Friday night starter? Cade Smith was Friday night starter this past week. He started on Thursday, but he was first game starter. That's probably what they're going to go with again this week, if I imagine correctly. You'll probably have Cade Smith on Friday and Drangelo on Saturday, Landon Gartman on Sunday, if I had to guess. But there's a chance that they could switch it up and try somebody else out. I'm not sure. Drangelo has not had some great starts in SEC play, so he's got to get settled here. 44, do you think there will be several new faces in the pitching staff next year? Yeah, probably so. You're always going to have some talent come in here. You're probably going to go to the portal and get some guys. They really need to get some guys out of the portal, I think, this year to try to get some really good talent in there on the pitching side of things. And you got some guys that are coming in that will come in this recruiting class and get some reps as well. But you also have a young staff. You have a lot of freshmen out there right now that are going to be big for you down the stretch over the next couple of years, and I think are guys that you can really build this pitching staff around. I think Drangelo and Bradley Lofton, Evan Sierra, Brock Tapper, those are guys that you can really build a solid staff around. I think they're going to be really good pitchers for Mississippi State in time. Right now they're kind of taking some lumps at times, but for freshmen, I thought they've really handled themselves well. They've been asked to do some big things for Mississippi State so far this year, so you'll see some new faces in there, I'm sure. Drew, no, I haven't heard anything on women's basketball transfer portal, and I'm not aware of any staff changes. Elvis Dog, I know over 19,000 tickets have been sold for Saturday. Can you validate that 20K is the max? I'm not really sure. I imagine they'll get as many as they can in there. I don't know what the max is as far as fire code is concerned, but I've got to imagine it's going to be a huge crowd there on Saturday for that concert and probably for the baseball game as well. Going to be a huge crowd there. I mean, there's already been some big crowds there this season for Mississippi State baseball for a team that's really been struggling. Now you got a little bit of momentum. You got Ole Miss coming to town, Super Bulldog weekend. And on top of that, you have a huge concert at the stadium. I mean, it's going to be a pretty wild Saturday, I'd imagine. Wouldn't shock me to see, well over 15,000 there for that Saturday. I think it's going to be a big crowd. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, you only got so many people that can get out there in the stands. I don't know if they're putting people on the field. I doubt it with another game on Sunday, but we'll see what happens. I'm very interested. This is the first time this has happened, so I'm very interested to see how this plays out. Kobe Walker football picked up another 2024 commit. They did. The staff got their third commitment of the season. It is a linebacker out of the state of Alabama, Caleb Dozier, who I watched some of his film, really like him, good-sized kid. I think that he's got a chance to play possibly the Sam spot for Mississippi State. To me, that's what he looks like. He looks like a guy that could possibly put his hand on the ground, play a little end for you, but good athlete. He played tight end for his high school too, so a dual guy, versatile athlete. I think he's going to be a good pickup for State. Second Alabama kid that they've gotten so far this year. So I really like the trio of players that they have so far. Random Yoda is Lowe's left arm hurt. No, I just think that they're trying to get him more comfortable on one side. It's hard to get, and I think that's a reason that you don't see a lot of people throwing both arms. It's not that nobody can do it. It's that I think it's just very difficult to be really good at both arms. I think you've got to focus on one side and get really good at it. I think that's what they're doing right now with him. I think they're just trying to get him really good on the right side. And, he could come in there every now and then and switch it up and pitch from the left. But right now it looks like they're just trying to exclusively make him a right-handed pitcher, which I don't have a huge issue with. It's really difficult to throw with both arms and be really effective. And he's shown to be a little better from the right side. So hopefully he can get it all squared away and be really effective for State from the right side. Bryce Hall, looks like we're losing the recruiting war for football in the state. Am I right to be a little worried we're losing the war? Well, it's just so early, man. It's hard to make rash decisions on a recruiting class in April. It's just there's so much that goes on, and commitments this early in the process really don't mean a whole lot. I mean, it's nice to get excited about some of those guys, but you don't sign anything until December. Everybody can still contact you. So much can change throughout a year. So many coaches leave and take other jobs. It's just so early. I mean, they don't have a ton of momentum on the recruiting trail right now, but they've had some good people on campus and hosted some really good players. And, you got a good staff, I think, in place. I'm just not overly concerned right now. Now, you start getting to October, November, and you don't have a whole lot of big-time guys on campus, and you don't have a whole lot of guys committed, and you're not looking like you're in great shape, then maybe you get a little worried. But I still think there's going to be some big commitments in the summer. There's some guys that are holding off those commitments right now. And a lot of people want to wait and see a little bit of what Zach Arnett does. Let's let his staff get to work a little bit, and they're getting to know him. They're getting to know this new staff. I mean, you have a brand new coaching staff, and some guys are probably a little skeptical. of what to expect from the Zach Arnett team. But I'm holding out a little bit longer to see how they do. Elvis, Kelby Jones is taking an assistant job with Oklahoma State. Yeah, I saw that. I was referring to any further staff changes. I haven't heard of any more from the women's basketball staff. But yes, Kelby Jones going to Oklahoma State was a good piece for State last year, the women's basketball program. To have him on board as basically an analytical guy, and I thought he did a really good job kind of compiling data for the team and really kind of digging deeper into the scout. And that's a guy that Mississippi State pulled from an assistant coaching position from his alma mater. And he did a really good job, I thought, in year one. Kind of a guy that's rising up the ranks. He's now an assistant coach in a Power 5 school. This is a guy that's probably going to rise up, I think, a little bit over the next few years. Really good guy, too. I'm happy for him. Elvis, what does Bryce Chance have to do to get back in the lineup? I don't know, man. It's probably going to take somebody else in the outfield kind of struggling a little bit, or somebody else in the order struggling. I mean, right now you can't put Dakota Jordan on the bench. You can't put Kellen Clark on the bench. He's hovering around 300 now, and that's a guy that has not hit like that since he's been at Mississippi State. He's starting to hit for average. Colton Ledbetter's leading the SEC in walks. It's just a tough deal. He's just kind of odd man out right now because the lineup's really good. I mean, you can't take Luke Hancock out, I don't think. Ross Highfield has been exceptional in the last few games. Hunter Hines is swinging a big bat. It's just tough to find a place for him right now. State's got a lot of good options in that lineup. Pitching staff is another story, but the offense is really good right now. And defense is another story as well. They've got to be a little stronger on the defensive side of the ball. 44, who will replace Lane at short if he continues to be inconsistent in the field? I don't know what's going on with David Mershon right now. I mean, that's to me, one of your only other options. You have Will Hoyle, I think, can play middle infield, possibly play some shortstop, but he made a really good play the other day. Lane did. He's just been kind of inconsistent, but he did make a really good play, I thought, later in the ball game. Nice diving stab and a throw out at first. I thought the second part of that game, I thought they were exceptional defensively. They really struggled in the first inning or first or second inning, whenever that was, first inning. And after that, I thought they played really well defensively. So, I mean, it's just been inconsistent. I don't know what's going on with the consistencies there in the infield, especially, third base and shortstop, but just haven't been able to consistently put together a great defensive product. Last year, they were really good. I think Lane had 5 errors all year last year. He's up to 11, I believe, at this point, so got to be better. Kobe, how do you think Zach Arnett will do this year? I think that he's on track. I think that, to me, I've been impressed with him so far, how he's handled things. I think he's a sharp guy. I think he knows what he's talking about. I think he has a good staff around him. I mean, my prediction has been 9 wins. I haven't completely backed off of that, even after losing Mike Leach. I mean, I still think that this team can win 9 games. The schedule's manageable. It's not completely daunting. It's, to me, a much better schedule than last year. You got Ole Miss at home. You got LSU at home. Auburn has a new coaching staff, and Hugh Freeze is a really good coach. I think that's going to be a tough game to play at Auburn, but it's still, some turnover there, both in personnel and coaching staff. So I mean, that's a winnable game. You've beaten Texas A&M a couple years in a row. You beat Arkansas last year. That's a game you can win. So to me, the schedule is very manageable for Mississippi State to get to 9 wins. I think 8 wins is a good year. 9 is a really good year. Somehow get a 10th win, you're at a great year. You're at a year that you don't normally have. And 9-3 in the regular season and getting a bowl game, I think everybody would be thrilled with that. Tucker Medlin, do you think a sweep is possible this weekend? It's hard to predict that, especially with Mississippi State's troubles on the mound and defensively. But, Ole Miss has not been good. Their offense has been kind of surprisingly rough. I mean, they've hit some home runs, but not swinging a hot bat in SEC play. And, their pitching staff isn't great. I think they have over 7 earned average. Their pitching staff hasn't been worse than MSU's. But they have not been great. So, State can hit that group. They don't have a Hunter Elliott out there right now or Dylan DeLucia or anybody like that. So it's possible. If they swept Ole Miss, it wouldn't be a complete shock. If Ole Miss swept them, it would not be a complete shock. No result, I don't think, would faze me. Whatever happens this weekend would not surprise me. I really do not believe that anything is off the table. But, a sweep would be incredible for State. They would be right back in the conversation at that point. You're sitting there at 6-9 with a chance to get into NCAA postseason with a nice run down the stretch. So, that would be great for them. So, 44, I think the defense will be even better this year. This offense should hopefully keep them off the field more than the air raid with its dead periods. Yeah, I think that would be a big thing for them. And, hopefully the defense is going to be a little more liberal with their rotations. They need to get some more players in the game, keep some guys fresh. I do think the offense will help too, because there's going to be a more conscious effort to get guys the ball, running the football. The air raid would run some clock, but a lot of times you're getting off the field quickly because you're not able to sustain drives. So I think that will help for sure. Kobe, who will be the wide receiver starters? They've been moving some guys around. Xavion Thomas has been playing both outside and inside, so he's a guy that's rising up the list pretty quickly. But, I would say definitely Tulu Griffin in the slot, Justin Robinson on the outside as well. And then you got some options there. You got, Jaden Wally. You got Jordan Mosley that's had a really good spring to this point. What's Freddie Roberson going to look like when he gets to school? That's a guy that I think contends for a starting spot right away. You got some really good options. I think you're going to have some transfers in the offseason too, or in the summer, because there's just so many wide receivers. You already got Marquez Dortch that hit the portal. There's so many guys. I mean, there's not enough reps for everybody. But, Justin Robinson and I think Tulu Griffin are your, to me, unquestioned starters. And I think Jordan Mosley's got a good shot too. Rufus Harvey, really good wide receivers out there for Mississippi State this year with a chance to do some damage. Brick, do you think the Diamond Dawgs still have a realistic chance at postseason? They do. I mean, they really need to win this weekend. You have to win this series. I think you have to win this series and you have to win the Auburn series the next 2 weeks. That's 3 straight series wins. At that point, you're sitting there at 7 SEC wins at the least. If you somehow find a sweep there, then you're looking at 8 SEC wins. And then you're just trying to scratch across 5 wins the rest of the way. Because I think 13 wins with Mississippi State's resume with their RPI, which is probably going to be, at that point, if you win 13 games in the SEC, probably in the 30s, maybe in the 20s, I would guess, because you got to factor in these non-conference games they're going to play that's probably going to drop them in the RPI. I'm thinking with 13 SEC wins, you're somewhere from 28 to 35 in the RPI. You're in, I would imagine, with 13 SEC wins. So they do have a chance. They do have a realistic chance, but you're talking about a very small margin for error. You're talking about LSU on the road, Arkansas at home, Tennessee, Texas A&M is not great, but you're having to play that game late in the season. I don't know if they can do it with the pitching staff, but yes, it's realistic, I think. I think it's possible. Tom T, pitchers used to stare into the box in between pitches, and now they stare at their wrist. And then they look up and throw. Hard to focus when you change what you're staring at. Yeah, that's a good point. There's some give and take with this new era of college baseball and baseball as a whole. You now have these earpieces in with the catchers where you're trying to make sure that guys aren't stealing signs. And there's just so many distractions. I mean, you have the pitch clock, you have a tight zone that you're throwing to now with this TrackMan that umpires are getting judged pretty harshly now to be as accurate as possible. They're scared they're going to have a bad zone, so it's just there's so many things at this point going on for a pitcher that I think the advantage has gone to the hitter. I think you're seeing the offense up just about everywhere. Walks are up from pitchers. Mississippi State is on a different level with their walks and their ERA and all that. But I do think that there's something to a lot of those issues. Elvis Amani Larry has dropped off considerably in SEC play. The Clark at leadoff experiment went fairly well, but is there a chance someone else leads off at this point? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see Colton Ledbetter at the top. I mean, you would like to have him batting behind someone. I thought Larry was better on Saturday, and I still think his potential as a hitter is too high to take him out or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, you could see somebody like Ledbetter who is leading the conference in walks. Again, I would like to see him behind someone, but wouldn't shock me to see him as a leadoff guy. But yeah, Larry is a prototypical leadoff guy when he's on. You're right, he has dropped off a good bit. I mean, his batting average is around 300 now, but I mean, still pretty big OBP. He's a guy that can work a walk. Just has to get locked back in. Tucker coming into town for Super Bulldog weekend. What should I watch for in the spring game? Offense, man. I mean, I think everybody's going to be looking at that offense and seeing what Kevin Barbay has to offer. I do caution. I mean, don't expect this group to be, running on all cylinders at this point. They're still breaking in new offense. You have some guys that have been out. I mean, you have one of your starting offensive linemen and Cam Jones is out, and you've had Simeon Price has been out a good bit. So there's a couple of guys that have been out, and they haven't been able to fully, get locked in on this offense. But I do think that it's looked good at times so far this spring. That's what I'm keeping an eye on the most. I don't think there's going to be a huge change on the defensive side. So there's not a ton of things I'm looking for there outside of the secondary. I want to see what the safeties look like. You have a bunch of new safeties, a bunch of new faces back there. You need those guys to step up. You need a size Furge to step up at cornerback, which I think he is so far this spring. And some other guys, too, that need to provide some competition there at corner because you got to have some help there along with DeCamerion Richardson. But those are kind of the main things I'm looking for. I want to see what the secondary looks like in the spring game and also the offense. I want to see them starting to kind of round into form. 44 says J-Rob, Justin Robinson, and Woody Marks breakout season. Yeah, it could be a big year. I think this offense can be really, really big for Woody Marks. I've been really impressed with the running backs to this point. Seth Davis has looked good. Pittman's looked good back there at running back. I really like that group. I think this is going to be a good offense for Mississippi State skill players and also for the offensive line too. Kobe, how much playing time will Mike Wright get? That's a good question. I'm really interested to see what they do with him. Every time he's in there and he gets loose, I turn to somebody and tell them they have got to find a way to get him in the game and utilize his skill. I don't think that he's going to be a guy that's going to help you in the passing game a ton, but his skill set as a runner is not like anything Mississippi State's had in quite some time. I mean, maybe Nick Fitzgerald was the last time they had a guy that could run like this. I mean, this guy is a deer. He can really get out and run. He's going to be a tough guy to corral in the open field. If he ever gets past the linebackers, he's got a chance. So they got to find a way to do something with him. I don't know, what exactly they have drawn up for him. And I haven't seen a ton outside of him just lining straight up at quarterback, but put him in the backfield, line him up at wide receiver, put him in motion, or throw the ball to him. This is a guy that if he gets the ball in his hands, he's dynamic. So that's what I want to see. I don't want to see him holding a clipboard on the sideline all game. I want to see him in the game. I want to see him get some reps because he's a guy that can seriously help you on the offensive side of the ball at quarterback or wherever they put him. They don't have a ton of guys with that kind of skill set. All right, any more questions? I smell some shrimp downstairs. Wife is cooking. I asked for some barbecue shrimp tonight. I'm pretty excited about that. But if no more questions, we'll go with Elvis, who seems to be odd man out on the offensive line. Man, I don't know if that's been decided yet. They got so many. It's a good problem I think to have, but that offensive line right now. You got Percy Lewis at left tackle. I think Albert Reese has been running some left tackle. Nick Jones can play left tackle, and then Nick Jones is going to have a starting spot. I imagine Cole Smith's going to have a starting spot, and it looks like Steven Lasoya probably going to have a starting spot at a guard or center or wherever. Right now, Cole Smith has been your exclusive starter at center. Right tackle, I've got to think when Cam Jones is healthy, he's going to take over there or either at right guard. I think he's going to be out there for Mississippi State. So you got a good problem. You got several bodies up front that you feel good about, but not a ton of guys that have locked down their spot. So I don't know if that's a concern for some people. For me, it's more of an opportunity, but I don't know if some people might be concerned that those guys haven't locked that down, but I think you just have a ton of guys that can compete, and the best 5 are going to play. I think there's several guys that you can move around different positions. That's a good thing to have. 44, what's the minimum number of pitchers State needs to do well enough to make postseason? 6, 7? That would probably be my guess. You need 2 starters that you feel good. You really need 3, but if you have 2 guys that you feel good about getting you 6 innings every single weekend, and Friday and Saturday you're going to have 2 guys that every week could get you 6 or 7 innings, you have a good shot. Because at that point, you just need a Nate Dome on one of those nights to get you the rest. But then you got some of those bullpen guys have got to step up. Bradley Lofton's got to be able to throw strikes. Evan Sierra's got to be good out of the bullpen. Brock Tapper's got to be good. Casey Hunt's got to be good. I think Hunt is a 2-inning guy. I think he's been really good for 2 innings, and after that, it can get a little hairy. But I feel good about Casey Hunt right now. I don't, when he comes in the game, I'm not overly worried. He's been a guy that's got you out of some jams in a couple of SEC weekends. So that's a guy that I don't think you need to leave in there too long, but at the same time can get you a couple of innings against some really good lineups. So you're getting there. You're starting to, Colby Holcomb, I think, has really started to show you something. We've seen some good things from Evan Sierra. Bradley Lofton, again, we've seen some really good things from him. He just has to throw strikes. The starters, I think, are the biggest thing. You've got to have some great starts. They've got to start getting some guys going 6 innings, giving up only a couple of runs or something. You can't get into trouble like you did with Durangelo the other day, and he gives up a 5 spot in an inning and just can't stop walking people. You got to have better starts than that. But 6 or 7, they went to the Super Regional in 2018 with about 6 guys that they felt good about. So if you had 6 or 7 guys that you felt really good about on the pitching staff, that's a good group. With the offense that they have, if you can just limit team, that's the thing. If this team was giving up 5 runs a game in SEC play, it had an ERA of 5. You're talking about you've probably won every series at this point with the exception of Vanderbilt. That's the difference for this team. If they were just average and even, a little below average, this team would be really good. That's because the offense has been so good that even a monocule amount of pitching could give you a really good chance. And right now they're just not getting it. They're not giving their offense a chance. I wouldn't say that. I mean, they have won 3 of the last 5, so they are giving their offense a little more of a chance than they have. But it's got to be better. Oh, who's next? Tucker, how much have Dakota Jordan and Ross Highfield gotten snubbed in SEC Freshman of the Week the last 2 weeks? Yeah, man. Well, last week, they're not going to give it to a team that doesn't win a series, I don't think. They give it to the teams that are winning. This week was just tough luck. And Ross Highfield, during the week, I think it was Valparaiso, no, Lipscomb. Well, they played the same week, I guess. But the Lipscomb week, he had the 3 home run game that he had. That was just bad luck because he was going up against the dude from LSU that just was a monster that week. This week is kind of the same thing. Just a big week for the freshman at A&M, I think. So it's just it's just bad luck. But State's got to win too. I mean, they just have to win more games. I think both of those guys are earning their way onto the all-freshman team, though. They are both having a phenomenal last couple of weeks. If they keep it up, I mean, you're talking about a couple of guys that could be freshman All-American if they keep this pace. But 2 just extremely powerful athletes that I think are going to be great. By the time this freshman class, if they all stay together, by the time they're juniors, this is a Omaha caliber team. If these guys stay together and you're able to develop pitching, and that's the big thing. I mean, they got to get better at pitching, but these are players that can carry you to Omaha. That's how good I think these players are. I feel very highly about Ross Highfield, Dakota Jordan, David Mershon, the freshman pitchers. I feel really good about those guys. You just got to be able to continue to develop. You got to get some more talent in here around them, but this is a good nucleus of freshmen. They're definitely living up to the billing of that class ranking, which is like top 5. Brick, with Luke not having any more eligibility left, who do you think can be the leader for Mississippi State baseball next year? I don't know. It might be a guy that's not here. I do think that there's going to be some of those young guys that are going to step up. You have some alphas in that young group. I think Mershon's an alpha. Dakota Jordan, Ross Highfield, both alphas. I think Bradley Lofton is too. It might be some of those guys as sophomores that have to step up and do that. And then we'll see who comes back from the team. Just don't know yet who's going to be back. But several guys that have the possibility to really step up and be leaders on this team next year and beyond. Tom T, why did Coach Arnett use the GIF for a 3-star without no Power 5 offers? I mean, they do that for everybody. Why would you just pick and choose? That's what you do with commitments. It doesn't really matter whether you're a 4-star or not. 44, assuming State looks to the portal for at least one bona fide starter. Yeah, probably so. I mean, they missed out on Paul Skeens. I mean, that was a huge miss now looking back. We knew it was a big miss back then as well, but it was just going to be very difficult to get him to Mississippi State. But did have a shot. But LSU was the better option for him, and it's paying off. I mean, they're going to be a team that's going to have the possibility to compete for a national championship this year. I don't really blame him for going there, but you need a guy like that. I mean, maybe not, like him. You might not find a guy that's throwing 100 consistently and getting up to 99 in the 7th inning or whatever he's doing. But if you can go get a bona fide starter, I think that really carries a lot of weight for you next year. Let's say Turkey Hunter. Yeah, I think that's what it says. Why are we relying on freshman pitchers? What has happened with the pitchers' development that have been with the program? Well, you've had injuries. I don't think those guys are developing well, and a lot of that could be on coaching. But too, some of these freshmen are talented guys. Bradley Lofton, Durangelo Sanja, those 2 guys are not common for Mississippi State. They're guys that usually are probably getting drafted and going pro. State was able to get them to campus. So that's part of it. And then, guys are not developing. They got to develop better. And also the pitching injuries. Pico Khan out for the year, Tommy John. You have 2 other guys that were going to be huge in your bullpen this year, Stone Simmons and Brooks Auger. They had Tommy John last year. So those were huge losses for them. Cade Smith's been hurt. Aaron Nixon's been hurt. Still hadn't gotten back to his full recovery either. So, it's been tough. But yeah, I mean, some of it is on the MSU pitching staff. Some of it's tough luck, and some of it's guys are good in that freshman class. Tucker, do you see any path to Foxhall returning next year? If not, who are some pitching coaches you would target? It's gonna be tough, man. I mean, I think he's gonna have to be better down the stretch. I mean, they're gonna have to be significantly improved down the stretch. He's definitely on the hot seat, I would say, for Mississippi State. With this product, you've got to change something. Something's got to change for Mississippi State. You can't keep putting this pitching staff out on the field. I mean, it's not sustainable. State can't compete in the SEC with this kind of pitching staff. So I do think it's going to be he's going to be one of the guys that's squarely on the hot seat if things continue down this path. If they stay where they are right now and get worse, then yeah, his job is in jeopardy. As far as guys I would target, I mean, you go after some of the biggest names. Wake Forest is having a really good season. That's one of the guys that I would look at. Their pitching staff there. Iowa's pitching staff's been really good this year. Go after some big names too. I mean, there's some guys out there that Nate Yeski was a guy that Mississippi State really wanted when Lamonis was hired, and he's at A&M. I'm not sure he would leave A&M. Southern Miss's pitching coach is great. That's a guy that I would look at as well. I don't know if he would be willing to leave Southern Miss right now, but yeah, I mean, there's a ton of names out there that you got to go after. And this is Mississippi State. You're willing to pay some money, so they should have something to sell. It's a national championship team. It's a program that I would put up there as a potential blue blood. They're right up there, top 10 program, I think, as far as talent, resources, facilities. I mean, Mississippi State has a lot to sell. They have a pitching lab, nice pitching lab in there. So you have a lot to sell to some pitching coaches that even a few years ago you didn't have to sell. 44 really had the best offense State has had in years is being hindered by about as bad a pitching staff as it guess could be. Yeah, that's really kind of the frustrating thing about it all. State has a really good offense, top to bottom. I mean, 1 through 9, they have been really good. At least at some point, every player has made a major impact, been really good this year. And right now, this is an offense that's clicking pretty well. You got Ole Miss coming in this weekend. You got a chance to have another big weekend offensively, and you're sitting there at 3-9. It's really frustrating. It's why I think pitching is more important than offense. If you got a pitching staff that pitches good all the time, eventually your offense is going to click. You're going to have an offense that can get it together, and we've seen some really good pitching staffs at Mississippi State before that have kind of carried the team, and the offense, maybe not so good most of the year, really kind of comes along. I always feel like pitching is more important than offense, because if you're not able to hold somebody, then the offense is no good. I mean, you could score 20 runs, I guess, and just out-hit the other team, and that happens from time to time. More often than not, if you have an earned run average that's well over 8 runs, 10 runs in SEC play like Mississippi State does, you give your offense no chance for success. I mean, Mississippi State's offense is in the top third of the league right now, and they're 3-9. So, I mean, the offense has had nothing to show for it. You had 3 wins to show for it at this point. 44, do you think the offense continues this success in the next year? Yeah, I think it's still going to be solid. They'll probably go get some solid additions out of the portal. They'll have some guys in the signing class as well. I mean, the offense for Mississippi State has been pretty good just about every year. I mean, they've had some years they've been up and down from a batting average perspective, but for the most part, State's offense is usually pretty solid. The pitching is where it really needs to improve for Mississippi State to take that step back towards being a contender, being a potential national seed, getting to a super regional, getting to Omaha, and competing for a championship. That's where State has to be. They've got to be better there. All right, y'all. Anybody else? Another good night on here. Appreciate you guys for checking in. All right. All right, Bassin and duck hunting. We'll answer one more. What percent of the roster do you think will transfer? Will the current state of the team being lowered in this league cause people to leave? I don't know. I mean, Mississippi State kind of sells itself. I think those guys like being here. I don't think that it'll be one of those deals where there's a mass exodus or anything like that. Especially if they have Chris Lemonis still on staff. I mean, state baseball is a brand name. I mean, I don't see a large percentage transfer. And you might have some guys transfer that want more playing time. Some guys that they're trying to restructure the roster. There's always going to be some adjustments there. That could happen. Turkey Hunter, does the recent difficulty with the baseball team make you question the current coaching staff's influence on the national championship? I've always thought that they played their major part in that. I hate to take away their role in that because you start getting on a slippery slope whenever you say, it's this staff's fault that the team stinks, but they had no influence on the national championship. They had their play in that. I think what you had was a different style of team, a different locker room there that the staff handled well. And some of those guys are gone now, and you've got to adjust your mentality with the team, and you've got to adjust some of the things that you're doing with the team. And I think it's just, to this point, has not worked as well as it did with the Tanner Allens and the Jake Mangums. I think that Chris Lemonis and the staff had a lot to do with that national championship. And I think they have a lot to do with some of the struggles that they're having now, but I also think there's other influences that have gone into it as well. So I don't want to take away what they did with those teams that went to Omaha in 19 and 21, and then the national championship team as well. I think they deserve some credit on that also. And, they recruited some of those players too, and a lot of people have tried to act like it was Andy Canizaro's team, it was John Cohen's team. Well, they had their input too. I mean, they don't have Will Bednar on that team without Chris Lemonis. They don't have Houston Harding without Chris Lemonis. Braylon Skinner doesn't score that run without Chris Lemonis that sent the team to the national championship, and you definitely don't win without Will Bednar or Houston Harding. So I think they definitely deserve their credit on that as well. Bassin and duck hunting, you or Brian mentioned on the podcast that you think Foxhall will be gone after this year no matter what. Even if we have a fantastic rest of the year, do you think that statement will still be true? I don't believe that. I know Brian does, but I mean, there's still so much that can happen. I mean, this team could roll off 5 straight weeks of being exceptional as a pitching staff, and at that point, I don't know if you get rid of Foxhall. I don't know. So it's just too early, I think. I mean, we have seen a lot that's happened over the last year and a half. I mean, right now the trend is not good. But who's to say something clicks with this pitching staff all of a sudden and Foxhall gets all the credit for it? I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm one of those, like, I don't want to count the chickens before the eggs hatch on coaching changes. But, yeah, I mean, it's definitely trending that way. Things are not looking good for Scott Foxhall. But there's so much that can happen in the rest of the season that could change that. So we will see how it goes. All right, guys, I'm about to go eat some shrimp. Appreciate you guys checking in tonight. Enjoyed the conversation again. Once again, please subscribe to this channel if you aren't already. We have some great stuff going on week after week. And, of course, we always have post-game and media availability, press conferences. If I'm there, we have those that we publish. You'll get a notification if you're subscribed every time those publish, so that's a good way to follow that. And then make sure you're checking us out over at 247 Sports. We got some great stuff going on over there. And pick up a Starkville Daily newspaper if you're in town this weekend as well. Check out some of my writing in there and the good work that we do, myself and Danny P., covering local sports there at the Starkville Daily. Check out Thunder and Lightning too if you're into podcasts. You haven't listen to myself and Brian Haydad covering Mississippi State sports. We have about a 30-minute to 45-minute show 5 days a week, and I feel like we do a good job on that as well, so check that out. All right, guys, appreciate you. Have a great rest of the week. We will see you this weekend. Super Bulldog weekend coming up. Spring game on Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, series of Mississippi State and Ole Miss. And baseball, Brett Eldridge is playing a concert Saturday night. It's a huge weekend on campus in Starkville. If you see me, say hey. I'll probably say hey to you back. We can have some good conversation. All right. Appreciate you guys. We'll catch you down.